and the competitiveness. Competitiveness, but what sort of competitiveness? Competitiveness in terms of the education sector out here, in terms of the set of the skills requirement, the mode of style of work out there. But along with, you should not forget that you are a part of a country where you are born, has to be social responsibility and social consciousness about the country of which you are a part. That means you have to think local, speak vocal, and you have to act local. The same mode which I was taking about Honorable Prime Minister Modi ji vision. Second, there has to be strengthening of the cooperation of among higher education institutions. And this strengthening should be with the surrounding communities. But what is actually happening? We do have MOUs. We do try to have what is it collaboration national, internationally. But what sort of collaboration? That collaboration is only on the papers only. I'm so sorry to say that. Please don't take it personally. But actually, from our scenario and from our experience, we have came to know maximum of the MOUs or maximum of the cooperation that happens, it only stands in the papers only. Actually, that is not beneficial. Just for the namesake or getting a good ranking, it is being done. That should not be a part. It should actually lead to some sort of sustainable growth and fruitful results also. Third is the mechanism. The mechanism which you adopt for this thing is important. Haphazardly, it's not viable for implementing. There has to be an action plan. It has to be decided. And the mechanism that you use for implementing it should be on the basis of that you have the understanding of that mechanism, you have the awareness, what actually would happen, how it will happen, and what can be the anticipated results. And respect is the most important thing. And for internationalization, I always tell innovation. Innovation is one of the most important parameters when we talk of internationalization. This is the way you can stand up different from other countries when you innovate. Innovation can be at any point of time also. It does not need a specific set of skills. So, which are the international critical issues? First is adoption. Adaptation to what? Adaptation to the environment. Adaptation to the ways of thinking. That means there should be broad-mindedness also, but consciousness about your own country also. And the practices of other organizations. That means the part of the organization which you are, it can be the part of the other organization, it can be competitor. For example, the benchmarks of good organization, the practices which they follow, and the cultures. Organization culture and the individual, these are the best important component which leads to outstanding organization. When you respect the organization culture, when you respect the diversity of the individuals, and there is a good environment in the organization, it always leads to a fruitful output. Second, being prepared for a change profession. That I already told you, multiple skill is the need of the hour. You cannot rely only on one skill. Please try to adopt multiple skills which are relevant to your profession or which has an integration with your profession. Third, you should have at least command on second language. That is need of the hour for international standing also. Even when you are working MNC also, if you have understanding of a second language, that is additional advantage also. If you are going abroad, if you have understanding, if you can write, read and speak well, that is additional advantage. For example, I have done my bachelor's in Russian language. That is additional advantages for me also. That leads to a lot of important decisions when I have interaction with the international agencies of Russia also. And the fourth, which is most important, is you have to have a increasing regulated, interconnected and interdependent work. What actually we say of the fourth one is that the entire world, that is a global village. It is interconnected, and interdependent. This has to be understanding of our students when we are teaching them in this library. What is the formula for this thing? A simple formula, more and better education. For me, there is one more which I can add on to it. And this is a simple formula, more and better international education. more and better international education with relevance to current country education. It has to have a cross integration of your education system and international education that makes a student, your student, what you say is one of the most best competitor for other persons in terms of when they try to have job seeking. But this leads to a lot of paradox. And what are these paradox? So for me, the paradox is the education system only. Please don't take it personally, the statements which will be following. The first one, higher education institutions, they are the best laboratory for social change. No one can deny it. What I am right now, what anyone is right now, it's because of the education we have got. It's only because of what we have been taught by our teachers. It's only on the basis of the set of skills and abilities, on the basis of the education system and our mentors, what we are currently is because of that only. But for me, there is a second paradox. But they have a tendency to inhibit their own innovation capacity. Sometimes this happens either reluctantly or unknowingly. We don't try to adapt ourselves with the international system. We think whatever we are teaching or whatever there is in the syllabus, that is sufficient enough for any students to get the employment. I might be wrong for me, but I need there should be a change in the syllabus also. And that will make a student stand out and get good employment opportunities. So why I am saying there is a lot of paradox? Because the current generation, which is Generation Z, they are a new type of students. They are not like us. They are a new type of students. And what type of students they are? This is a beautiful example. Coming scenario, the current students after 2016, they are all digitalized students. They use technology in such a way that we cannot even imagine. And if you see the example which I have set out here, this person seeing a child that is crying, what is asking, please don't worry, I'll take to your home, what is your address? And it's a beautiful example given out here, jimmy@gmail.com. That's a paradox now. That's a paradox because they are all these technocrats baby only. And why he's crying, that's a different scenario. And the question that was asked was different. And the answer that came out is a different. So this is a paradox of the higher education now also. Leading again, see, this is on the basis of the data. And the data, it says that, do the kid know more better than the parents? Yes, and the answer is yes. 63% of the parents told that their child knows better way of using the technology than they can do. But for me, the question mark is not the use of technology. The way the technology is used and the purpose for which the technology is used matters a lot. See, and this is the scenario, August 14, 2002. This shows that internet and 78% of the middle high school students they use internet. But the complaint, what was that? They said that the educators, that means the faculty, they did not know how they want to use the technology, or they weren't used to able technology in the desired manner in which the students wanted. That's a paradox because they are now more technocrats. We might be right. We might be using the technology. We might be using technology in such a way that we try to give the better education. But the expectation of students, because of this digitalized world and their experience and their knowledge, they think whatever is being taught in the class by the faculty is not in the way that they expect because they are more technocrats than the educators who are teaching them. So this happens when please don't take it personally. This is enter inside and eat it outside. This is what actually the students are thinking. And I see, it's a child who is reading a newspaper is asking a question to his father. I have a notebook, MP3 player, flash drive, iPad. Dad, what did you use in your school when you were a student? So this is pondering me. What did I have? I think a lot of people would be pondering what actually had happened. But what the answer would follow, that actually is a solution. My brain. The father of us or the senior people, they used to use the brain. The brain they use the meticulously. But now in this digitalized world, we should have a combination of brain and the technology. This is the example of Italian University in 1350. You see that, and what follows that, and the universities of today. What is the change out there? It's same only. But the style is changed of the classroom setting. Otherwise, it's same only. This has to change. And the third important thing, that is internationalization, which I am telling. First, you should give importance to globalization. Globalization means internationalization. Internationalization means adapting to the cultures, adapting to the technology, adapting to the syllabus, adapting to the other mode of mechanism. Then, but still, it has to be mobility. If you are adapting, that does not mean sitting at your own one place. You can adapt to each and everything. Cross culture or knowing the culture is only possible when you go abroad. That is mobility driven. And mobility driven, that means you should have an exposure of other countries also. That is possible through student exchange programs, and there are so many scholarships that are being given to the students. So I request, please try to have faculty exchange student program also, scholarships. You can try to have fundings from different government agencies also if you have lack of fund. Third is the cross-border delivery. That is mobility of programs, projects and institutions. Fourth important, student mobility. It's moving from south to north. Still it is moving from south to north. This has to come from north to south. This is an unequal distribution. It has to come. Otherwise, the economically developed country, they are still developing, and the peoples who are lagging in the north, they are still not developed. But there has to be a movement that leads to global competition of the students and scholars rather than limiting it to few countries. Fifth important is internationalization at home. I already told your curriculum, your competency, your outcomes, your syllabi, your mode of teaching, all should be at par of international standards, but giving due importance to your own country education system also. For this, only one thing is lacking is a strategic approach. The approach we are taking in inculcating all this is still lacking. And the last, which I told is important, is North-South partnership so that this inequality gets removed. So this is what actually will happen in the current scenario. There would be brutal pressure for talent. And people, the countries, they will be doing this talent hunting, brutal talent hunting for the talent. If you see that examples which I have kept, the later one less than 2%, then bit darker less than 5%, less than 10%, less than 20%, more than 20%, and not included. So what this means? This means the immigration rate of your highly educated person, which happens, what you say is that brain drainage, when the people who are highly educated in India, they have gone abroad for better opportunities. That is calculated by dividing the highly educated expatriate population from the country of origin. And that leads to this thing. That has to reduce. Rather than going into the brain drainage, we have to do brain regaining. And I think the standards has already started in India. A lot of people are coming back to India. That brain regaining is done. And our population, and what happens? When this brain regaining comes, that is a benefit to the country only because they bring the technology, they bring the advancement, they bring the skills, they bring the ability also, and they bring themselves the cross-culture adaptation also. So that is needed. The most spoken language in the world right now, Mandarin, Chinese, English, Hindi, Spanish, Russian, Bengali, Portuguese, German, French, Japanese. But coming scenario is a bit different. And what is the coming scenario? It will be same first, Mandarin, but then Spanish will jump from first to second, English will come down to third, Hindi or Urdu again third, Arabic third, and Portuguese. You see, this will happen by 2050, and this will be the most widely spoken languages in the world. That's why I was telling that knowledge of a second language is very important in the current scenario for survival, for advancement, for better opportunities, better career growth also, and better to stand out. So, but what happens in 2025? There will be a very dramatic diversification, and that will lead to a change in the modalities. Modalities of what? The people who will provide the education, and what will be these modalities? First, the funding model. 2025, the funding model will change. You see, in the current funding model also, it has been attached with NAC grade also. Yeah, I'm not NAC, but just for an example, all the gradings leads to funding model. Second, the role of technology, that will be the need of our students should be technocrats. But I still request to, they should not be digital divide. In Indian context, having technocrats, fully technocrats is still a very big problem because there are people who have to walk around 10 kilometers just to have access to the education. Technology is far away. And even in good cities also, even we have the technology, there are people who can't use it, or maybe there are a lot of connectivity issues. This is a very big problem, the role of technology. But we have to adapt to it. We have to change ourselves to it. Third is multinational universities. That will be needed. University focusing on cross-culture, cross-country syllabus integration, integrated syllabus would be needed. And fourth is the credentials. You have multiple universities, you have cross-syllabus, but the credentials should match with expectations, and it should not lead to any sort of inequality between the countries where it is locality. It has to be having a portabilities of credentials. And the last, this is very challenging. Saying is easy, implementing is very difficult, anticipating is easy, solution is very difficult. This we have to keep in mind. So, here I'll try to give some examples. The first one, what it is. First is increased mobility. Mobility is to be inter and intra, both. And we have to adopt to the internationalization of the institution. Intermobility, intramobility. Combination of your own country, combination of other country, relevance to the industry, relevance to the academia, relevance to the need. Second one, massive private investment or education, not only domestic. We do need investment because there are a lot of complaints that because there are funding issues, infrastructure are not getting improved, technology cannot be buy. There are a lot of facilities, infrastructure facilities cannot be done because there are funding issues. So the question is that private investment can be done, but private investment also leads to certain problems. That also should be avoided. I won't highlight the problems. People know what can be the problems. Quality assurance frameworks. It should not only be local. It should be regional. It should be national. And it should have international relevance also. Local, regional, national, international relevance. The role of rankings, I'll try to cover this aspect in details. I'll just mention one point that I am not against ranking, but I'll give you some sort of examples out there that might have a new sort of change in your idea. The proliferation of dual joint degree, this is happening. I'm sorry to say that. But maximally in the news, in the papers also, we are seeing there is a proliferation of dual joint degrees also. That needs to be avoided, that needs to be curtailed, that needs to be stopped down, that has to be strictly adhered. And varied efforts with second language. Still I'm emphasizing, please, I request, try your students to learn second languages also. But what is most important, internationalization infrastructure is present. but still old perspective prevalent. You must have the best state of infrastructure, but actually you are still having the old set of mindset. That has to improve. There are so many universities and there are so many colleges who have got funded. They have the very good state of infrastructure, but when it comes to usage, they are not able to depict in such a way they should use it. Otherwise, they will stand out with other institutions also. But now the word of caution, this which I told you, the word of caution for me is ranking. This actually is happening right now. Universities, education sector, colleges, they are running after ranking, and what happens? The burden comes on the quality of education that has been sidelined. I'm sorry to say that I'm not against ranking, but still I'm telling you that this has led to a lot of issues. What are those issues? I'll give you examples on the basis of data, on the basis of sources. These are not my personal opinions. Ranking has benefits. What are those benefits? First, a proximity of quality. It is said that the institutions which have best rankings, they stand out. They have quality education. I do agree. In somewhat of the way, they have good quality of education. Second is a source of comparison, which I'm always against. There should never be a comparison between one institute and second institution, but that leads to source of comparison. That means it leads to standing out that this institution is standing at this position, this institution is standing at this position. Same way we give the grades to the students, first rank, second rank, third rank. What happens because of this comparison? This comparison leads to competition. Competition, what happens when there is competition among HEIs? This will happen. We try to make decision making. Decision making, why? Decision making to stand out. Decision making to improve our rank. Decision making to improve our standards. Decision making to jump from certain rank to certain rank. But is it ethical the way we do it? Is it relevant the way we do it? That's a big question mark for me. Why? This happens. Excesses for everything, we run after it like anything, that we sometimes do excesses that was not needed. Excesses of what? These are the information. Are we moving in the right direction? Ranking. Competition, competition, competition. Standards. Movement from there. Decision making. Technology. Running after this thing. What it leads to? Do investing in other subsectors. What we have done because of this ranking things, we have all the money which we should have used for other things. Also, we are investing on only getting good ranking, good standards, just to stand out in the global competition or in the regional competition also. Second, is this the best formula? I always wonder why was taught to us in the schooling also. Is this the only way to do it? It's very simple, but I think this is not the correct way to do it. So ranking, is it enabling us to quality of education or it is a barrier of quality of education? Still a question mark for me. So have the student become an asset or liability for us if we are running after ranking? Are they asset or liability? So we have now moved away from research. So why? Because we are only thinking of global standard only. We are not thinking of local standards. So only global publication, global publication, global publication, not local publications. Now quality is it prestige? Because whatever the rank we are getting because of this ranking standards which are set, that is a sort of prestige now for us. And when it comes to prestige, we are mad about it. Sorry to say all that. And the last is public service. Are we attached to the world? Or we are detaching ourselves from the home? Detaching from the home means from your own country. We are running after global rankings. We are trying to compare our system with certain countries. That is a very bad thing. I'll give an example of that. So this is which I have sort of questions. You might agree, you might disagree, that's a personal opinion, but I say on the basis of sources, on the basis of research, it's not my personal opinion. Global university rankings data are flawed. HEPI, Higher Education Pharmacy International. Second, criticism for popular rankings. Why criticism? Corrupt colleges ranking. So that means there is some sort of corruption. This is a question mark for me. I cannot comment on it. Are global university really they are standing out, or they are a badge of shame? And why most universities should put the ranking game? All these sources are mentioned out here. Very meticulously, they have given the examples, they have made study, and they have said that now the institutions, they have gone mad about rankings, that they have forgotten about the quality of education and the basic ground, the basic layout on which the education system stands. And what is the misusing of the rankings problems? Misleading facts and manipulating numbers. This is going on. Everybody knows it, and no one can deny it. The facts are misleaded, the data are manipulated. So, are we really talking of the quality? No. The way we are able to sell better, the way we are able to portray, the way we are able to see ourselves by setting a standards of rankings, by misleading facts, that tells us that I am standing out here. That means this college that is standing at this number is inferior as comparison to me. Whether that is ethical, whether it's on a basis of factual data or not, that's a big question mark. I am not against ranking, but I am speaking on the basis of data and predatory and cannibalistic film. Then the reallocation of internal funding, where all this funding which should have been used better for quality of education, that is being used for getting better rankings. Is it really the need of the hour? I don't think so. And an incentive and reward system. If we get good rankings, we'll get good reward system. Still a big question mark for me. And what is happening? The main ultimate goal of tertiary education is getting distorted. The goals which we have set for primary access, the quality of education, the need of the education, that is getting distorted. And all this does the end justify the matter what? Is really what we are doing right now is relevant? Ranking is good, but the way we are getting it done, the way it is being done, is it appropriate? Is the end that we are getting really is appropriate? There are some easy, uneasy questions which always I have pondered. The first one is, are we preparing our students with a sense of privilege? Or are we giving them arrogance? A simple example.